My sister's voice carried perfectly through the Bluetooth speaker on my kitchen counter. I was sitting in my car across the street, watching the lights blaze through every window of the condo I had spent 4 years paying off. She was laughing, that sharp, bright laugh she saves for when she thinks she's already won. I set down my coffee and opened the app on my phone, the one my family never knew existed. They thought I was in Montreal at a work conference. They had no idea I was parked 40 feet away in the dark, watching every room of my own home on a live feed, holding administrative access to a building they had invited themselves into without asking. I whispered to nobody, "Enjoy it while it lasts." Then I tapped the first command. The smart lock on the front door cycled once. A soft mechanical click that nobody inside would have heard over the music. But on my screen, the status icon shifted from green to red. Locked. Deadbolt engaged. Secondary chain activated from the interior panel I had installed myself last March. They were in. And now they were staying in until I decided otherwise. My name is Claire Beaumont. I am 31 years old. I am a licensed forensic accountant working for a mid-size firm in Ottawa that contracts with the Canada Revenue Agency. I spend my days finding the exact moment someone decided the rules did not apply to them. And then I build the paper trail that proves it. I am very good at my job. My family spent a decade believing that skill would never get turned in their direction. They were wrong. The condo on Elgin Street had been mine since I was 27. I had saved for 6 years, lived on rice and canned soup through my mid-20s, declined every vacation, every splurge, every impulse. I had bought it outright with a down payment large enough to keep my mortgage payments at something I could manage alone. No co-signer. No help. My name on the title, singular, and clean. My mother had cried at the signing. "Happy tears," she said. I believed her then. It took me 3 more years to understand that she was crying, because she had expected her name to be on it too. Inside the condo, my sister was giving what sounded like a tour. I could hear her voice drifting between rooms through the microphone I had embedded in the entryway smoke detector 6 weeks ago. The day after I first suspected something was wrong. "And this is the second bedroom," she was saying. "I use it as a home office right now, but we could easily turn it into a nursery down the road." I pressed my fingers flat against the steering wheel. That was my office. My desk. My bookshelves lined with CPA study guides and tax law reference volumes I had annotated by hand. She was showing strangers around my home like it was already hers. I took a slow breath and opened the second tab on my phone. I had prepared for this night the same way I prepare every file at work. Methodically, without emotion, every piece of evidence logged, time-stamped, cross-referenced, and stored in 3 separate locations. The folder was labeled simply, Family. I had started building it 2 years ago, the week after my car accident on the 417. It had been a February evening, freezing rain turning the highway into a sheet of black glass. A transport truck had clipped my rear bumper and sent me spinning into the median. I walked away with a separated shoulder and a concussion that left me unable to read a screen for 3 weeks. The paramedics were kind. The hospital staff were patient and thorough. The phone call from my mother came 4 hours after I was admitted. I reached for it with my good arm, vision still swimming, expecting to hear panic, concern. The particular pitch of a mother's voice when she learns her child has been airlifted. "Claire," she said, "you need to update the beneficiary on your TFSA. Your uncle mentioned it at dinner. If something happens to you, we want to make sure everything goes to the right place." I stared at the acoustic tile ceiling of the hospital room. Not, "Are you okay?" Not, "We are on our way." A question about tax-free savings accounts while I was lying in a hospital bed with a neck brace. I said I would look into it. I hung up, and in the 3 weeks that followed, flat on my back in my darkened condo waiting for the concussion symptoms to pass, I started looking into everything. What I found took my breath away more completely than the crash had. My mother had been listed as a secondary contact on 2 of my investment accounts for years. I had added her during a period of medical anxiety when I was 24, thinking it was responsible planning. What I had not realized was that she had used that access to make herself familiar with my full asset picture. She knew exactly what I had, where it was held, and how it was titled. She had also, at some point in the past 3 years, begun referring to my condo as the family property in conversations with relatives. My aunt had mentioned it once, casually, at Christmas. I had filed it away as a misunderstanding. It was not a misunderstanding. The more I dug, the more the shape of it came clear. My mother had told her side of the family that the condo was a joint family investment. My father had been telling his colleagues that they owned property on Elgin Street. My sister had listed my address on a rental assistance application submitted to the province 18 months ago, claiming to be a low-income tenant paying market rent to an unnamed landlord. That last part had taken me 3 weeks to confirm. But once I had the document, The rest of the structure collapsed into view like a building with the wrong load-bearing wall knocked out. My sister had collected $11,000 in provincial housing subsidy, using my address and my property as the foundation of a fraudulent claim. The landlord she had invented did not exist. The rental agreement she had submitted was a document she had created herself, printed on paper that aged exactly as old as a ream she had purchased at a Staples on Bank Street 8 months prior. I knew the paper age because I had sent a sample for forensic analysis. I also knew she had used her boyfriend's inkjet printer, because inkjet ink degrades in a specific way under ultraviolet light that a laser printer does not replicate. The document she claimed was 2 years old had ink degradation consistent with 8 months of exposure. She had not counted on her sister being the person who looks for exactly these things for a living. I sat with all of that for 6 more weeks. I did not confront anyone. I did not change my passwords or close my accounts. I did not warn them that I knew. Instead, I set up the smoke detector microphone. I installed a secondary camera behind the ventilation grate in the hallway. I began quietly migrating my sensitive financial accounts to a new email address nobody in my family had ever seen. And I waited for them to make a move large enough to close the trap completely. That move came on a Thursday, when my mother called to tell me there was a family gathering planned for the following weekend and that she hoped I would not mind if they used the condo while I was away at my conference. I said of course not. What I did not say was that I had already rebooked my hotel in Montreal for a property 40 minutes outside the city. That I had no intention of attending the conference at all, and that I planned to be parked across the street from my own building watching everything unfold in real time. Now, here I was. On the audio feed, I heard the front door buzzer go off. More guests arriving. My sister laughed again and went to let them in. I recognized her boyfriend's voice, and then a woman I did not know, and then the particular booming voice of my father holding court about something in the entryway. I pulled up the camera feed and watched my father walk into my home carrying a bottle of Ontario Pinot Noir he had absolutely not been invited to bring because he had not been invited at all. He handed it to my sister with the wide, generous gesture of a man giving a gift in his own house. They had brought at least 7 people. I opened the 3rd tab on my phone. The building had a secondary Wi-Fi network that my family had never known about. The router they connected to, the one listed under the condo's main network, had been set to mirror all traffic through a monitoring profile I controlled. I could see every device connected. I could see my sister's phone, her boyfriend's laptop, my mother's tablet running a home decor app in the background. I could also, with one tap, push a firmware update that would lock that router to a whitelist. Only devices I approved would hold a connection. Everyone else would drop to no signal. I waited until I heard my mother's voice announce that she was going to do a little live video for the family group chat. Then I tapped the update. On the audio feed, there was a pause. Then my sister's voice. That's weird. The Wi-Fi just dropped. Her boyfriend said something about restarting the router. My mother made a frustrated sound. I switched the thermostat app open. The condo was set to 22 degrees. I moved it to 15. The furnace would take about 20 minutes to wind down meaningfully. Not enough to be dangerous. Enough to be uncomfortable. Enough to make people want to leave on their own. What I actually needed was one specific thing to happen, and I was patient enough to wait for it. My sister had a pattern I had observed over years. When things stopped going smoothly, she escalated. She did not problem-solve quietly, she performed. She needed an audience even for her frustrations, which meant that when the Wi-Fi failed, and the heat dropped, and the evening stopped feeling like a triumph, she would do something visible. I was betting on that pattern. I did not have to wait long. 23 minutes after I killed the Wi-Fi, I heard my father's voice shift into the register he uses when he has decided something is an insult directed personally at him. He was saying that this was unacceptable, that Claire had probably set this up remotely, that they should call the building manager. My sister said she was going to prop open the balcony door to get a signal, that maybe she could reach the street network from there. My mother said the condo was cold, and did not smell like anyone lived there, and maybe Claire never used it properly anyway, and it was a waste of a beautiful property. I noted the timestamp. Then my father said he was going to look around and see if the router reset button was somewhere obvious, and I heard him moving toward the hallway closet. The hallway closet where I kept my filing cabinet. My locked filing cabinet, which I had left in place deliberately, because it contained one real document and one very important fake one, and I needed him to find both. I heard the closet door open. I heard him rattling the cabinet. I heard him say, quietly, that there was a combination lock, and that he was going to get it open. He did not get it open. The cabinet was reinforced. But in trying, he dropped something, swore, and moved back to the living room. What he did not know was that the act of touching that cabinet had been recorded by the ventilation camera, time-stamped, and automatically uploaded to a secure cloud folder. I had everything I needed. I started the car. The drive to my own building took less than 2 minutes. I parked in my assigned spot, the one with my name on the placard, and walked to the front entrance carrying a bag that held a single black folder and my original title deed in a protective sleeve. I buzzed my own unit. There was a long pause. Then my sister's voice through the intercom, cautious and confused. "Hello?" "It's Claire," I said. "Open the door, please." Another pause. Then the lock buzzed and I walked upstairs. My sister opened the unit door in the particular way people open doors when they are hoping they misheard something. She looked at me with an expression that moved through several phases very quickly. Surprise, calculation, recovery. And then the soft, bright smile she has been deploying since we were children. "Claire, I thought you were in Montreal." "I came back early," I said. "May I come into my home?" She stepped aside. The living room held 7 people, who all turned to look at me at the same time. My mother on the couch, my father standing near the kitchen island, her boyfriend at the dining table, and 4 people I recognized from my mother's social circle, who had no business being in my apartment, under any circumstance. My mother stood up immediately, and came toward me with her arms open and her voice low and soothing. The tone she uses when she has decided to handle something before it becomes a scene. "Claire, sweetheart, you must be exhausted. We were just keeping the place warm for you. It's so quiet when you're away, and we thought—" "Mom," I said, "please sit down." She stopped. Something in my voice did not invite argument. She sat. I opened my bag and set the title deed on the coffee table. "I want to start by being very clear about something," I said, looking around the room. "This property is mine. My name is on the title. I have never added anyone else to that title. I have never agreed to share ownership, management, or access to this unit with any member of my family or anyone else in this room. Everyone here tonight is a trespasser." My father's face went the particular shade of red it goes when he has decided to be loud about something. "Now just a minute. We are your family. We are not trespassers. Your mother has a key. I gave her that key for emergencies," I said. "I did not give her permission to host social events in my home. I did not give anyone permission to be here tonight. I revoked that key access at 2 o'clock this afternoon." I held up my phone and showed him the smart lock log. "The key she used tonight no longer works on this door. The lock cycled to a new code the moment she entered. She will not be able to use it again." My sister had gone very quiet. She was watching me the way she watches things, when she is calculating how much trouble she is actually in. "This is ridiculous," my father said, stepping forward. "You don't speak to your mother that way. You don't speak to your family this way. We helped you get this place. We supported you." I looked at him for a moment. "Would you like to tell me specifically what financial contribution you made toward this property? Because I have every bank record, every mortgage statement, and every transfer going back to the day I signed. I would love to hear what you feel you contributed." He did not answer. "There's something else I need to address," I said, turning to my sister. 18 months ago, you submitted a provincial housing assistance application using this address. You listed yourself as a low-income tenant, and claimed you were paying rent to a private landlord. You collected $11,000 in subsidy payments from the provincial government. The room had gone completely silent. "That landlord does not exist," I said. "The rental agreement you submitted was created by you, 8 months before you filed the claim, on your boyfriend's inkjet printer. I have a forensic analysis of the document, confirming the ink degradation timeline. I have the original application. I have the payment records. And I have a copy of the complaint I filed with the Ministry of Municipal Affairs and Housing 3 weeks ago." My sister opened her mouth. No sound came out. "The rental agreement you used also happens to have a forged signature," I continued. "The signature purports to be mine, acting as landlord. That is identity fraud. It is also a separate charge from the benefits fraud. I was advised by a lawyer that the two together carry a significant likelihood of prosecution." My mother said, "Claire, you need to calm down. You are not thinking clearly. This is not." "I am thinking very clearly," I said. "I have been thinking clearly for 8 months. That is how long it took me to build this file." I set the black folder on the table. "Everything in here has already been submitted to the relevant authorities. The CRA has been notified about the misrepresentation of this property in your financial disclosures. The provincial ministry has the fraud complaint, and I have filed a formal trespass notice with the Ottawa Police Service effective as of this evening." My father said that was enough, that I was hysterical, that I needed to see someone. I had been waiting for that word. Hysterical. The same word my mother had used to my aunt at Christmas 2 years ago, when she was explaining why the condo really needed to be managed by the family. "She is not stable enough to handle it alone. You know how she gets." "I recorded that conversation," I said. My mother went still. "Christmas, 2 years ago. You were in the kitchen with Aunt Diane. You told her I was not stable enough to manage an asset alone. That the family needed to protect me from myself." I looked at her. "I have never been diagnosed with any mental health condition. I have never been hospitalized. I have a professional designation, a federal security clearance, and I have been managing my own finances without your help since I was 23. That recording has also been provided to my lawyer. The 4 guests from my mother's social circle had quietly begun gathering their coats. My sister said, her voice very small. Claire, we can talk about this. We can work this out. We can, I said. You can start by gathering your belongings and leaving. I am going to change the physical lock cylinder on this door tonight, and I am having a no-contact order prepared for this address. If any of you enter this unit without my written permission from this point forward, I will pursue the maximum available under the Trespass to Property Act. There was a knock at the door. I had made 1 phone call before I walked up the stairs. I had called the non-emergency police line and requested a constable be present for a property dispute, purely for documentation purposes. I had also forwarded the fraud file to the officer's email before walking up. I opened the door. 2 officers stood in the hallway. The kind of professionally neutral expressions that mean they have already been briefed and are here to observe, not mediate. Is this the unit? The lead officer said. Yes, I said. Thank you for coming. I have asked the individuals inside to leave. I wanted an officer present to document their departure. My father began talking immediately, the same tactic he had used my entire life. Volume and authority deployed as a substitute for logic. He told the officers that I was unstable, that I had set up surveillance equipment illegally, that the property was a family asset regardless of whose name was on the title. The officer looked at him for a moment. Sir, she said, is your name on the title deed for this unit? It's complicated, he said. Is your name on the deed? She repeated. A pause. No. She turned to me. Is this your property? I handed her the deed. She looked at it for approximately 4 seconds. Okay, she said. She turned back to the room. I am going to ask everyone who is not the registered owner to gather their things and leave the premises. You are welcome to continue any civil discussion outside. If anyone refuses to leave, I will be writing trespass documentation. My mother grabbed her coat. She did not look at me on the way out. My father followed, still talking, the words losing their shape as he moved into the hallway. My sister stopped in the doorway. She looked at me, and her eyes were wet, and I felt the particular ache that comes from being someone's sibling before you became someone's adversary. I needed the money, she said. I was really struggling. I know, I said. You could have asked me. She left. I closed the door. The officer took a brief statement, confirmed the trespass notice, and told me to follow up with the fraud file through the appropriate channels. Before she left, she mentioned that her partner had flagged an issue with my father's vehicle in the building lot. His registration had been expired for 2 months. The car was ticketed and flagged for removal, if not moved within 48 hours. I thanked her, and closed the door. The condo was quiet. The kind of quiet that feels different from ordinary silence. The quiet of a space that finally belongs fully to the person standing in it. I picked up my sister's wine glass from the coffee table and carried it to the kitchen. I poured it down the drain. Then I opened my own cabinet and found the bottle of Niagara Riesling I had been saving, opened it, and poured a proper glass. I sat down on my own couch, in my own living room, and opened the folder on my laptop labeled Family. I looked at it for a long moment. Then I created a new subfolder, moved everything into it, and labeled it Closed. I took a long sip of wine and looked at the city lights through my own window. In the weeks that followed, the fraud complaint proceeded through the ministry. My sister was formally investigated. She repaid the $11,000 in subsidy payments through a repayment agreement brokered by her lawyer, and she received a conditional discharge on the fraud charge, which meant no criminal record if she met the conditions. Her boyfriend, who had known about the scheme and helped prepare the document, was not offered the same arrangement. My father's financial disclosures were reviewed by the CRA after I provided the documentation about the property misrepresentation. There were penalties. Not dramatic ones, but real ones, with a paper trail attached to his file that would follow him for 7 years. My mother called me twice in the first month. The first time I let it go to voicemail. The second time I picked up. She did not apologize. She said she hoped we could move past this. I told her I was open to that. Eventually, when she was ready to have an honest conversation about what had happened. She said she didn't know what I was referring to. I told her to take care of herself and ended the call. I have not heard from her since. I am not sure whether that is her choice or mine. Possibly it is both. What I know is that every morning I wake up in a home with my name on the deed, my furniture in the rooms, my files on the shelves, and a lock on the door that only I control. Some days that is enough. Most days it is more than enough. It is everything.